Did you say he could fight any Trump supporter?
Yeah, he says he kicked, and they're scared of him because he could fix a truck. Like they're threatened by his masculinity. I know how to fix a truck. So he said, like, do you? I bet you don't.
The lady doth protest too much. I bet you don't. I fear.
I bet if I bring a broken truck to you and a bag of tools, you're f***ed.
This is the guy that wants to be your vice president, calling the #1 entrepreneur in America that gay guy. You understand how weird that is? You just call him that gay guy?
That gay guy. You've never said that. You've never said that.
Adam, how do you feel about that gay guy comment that Tim Walz just made?
Joe Rogan and Patrick Bet-David recently joined forces for a ruthless takedown of Tim Walz that left the Minnesota governor's reputation in ruins. With Rogan's blunt, no-holds-barred style and Patrick's sharp, pinpoint accuracy, they revealed Walz as the master of hollow catchphrases and failed policies. From rising crime rates to choking off businesses, nothing was off-limits. This wasn't just a roast, it was a total dismantling. If leadership had a scoreboard, Walz just suffered a loss louder than fireworks.
Have you ever seen that video?
No.
This is what people love about Donald Trump. The fact that he would say this.
But unfortunately, Governor Walz isn't here himself, but don't worry, he'll say that he was. He's going to say he was. I used to think the Democrats were crazy for saying that men have, period. But then I met Tim Walz.
They're not ready for the common sense questions. Yeah. They're not ready for the simple questions. And when he just sat there when he had no answer, and then he didn't understand the question, and then he said, what do you want me to say? And I'm like, oh my God, you're never going to be president. You will not be running in 2028. You're done.
Well, I don't know whether, it was because of that question or not, if he would ever be president, because the way he handled himself in the debate with J.D. Vance, that was that's probably the worst debate performance I've ever seen, aside from Joe Biden's debate with the president, the first one where
Joe Rogan didn't just throw a punch at Tim Walz. He delivered a full-on verbal knockout that made mixed martial arts seem like a friendly handshake, with the ferocity of someone who's watched too many bureaucrats ruin something good. Rogan came in swinging with a mix of logic, humor, and sheer disbelief. He wasn't acting as a referee, he was the heavyweight fighter, commentator, and the crowd all at once. And Tim Walz was the clueless guy who wandered into the octagon thinking it was a yoga class.
Back on this, Tim Walz in the campaign trail was literally saying free speech doesn't include hate speech and misinformation.
There's no guarantee to free speech on misinformation or hate speech, and especially around our democracy.
Hey man, you. Because everything that we called misinformation just a few years ago, it's on the front page of the New York Times now that we were lied to.
Senator, thank you. Governor, you previously opposed an assault weapons ban, but only later in your political career did you change your position. Why?
Yeah, I sat in that office with those Sandy Hook parents. I've become friends with school shooters. I've seen it. Look, I was an NRA guy for a long time. They used to teach gun safety. I'm of an age where my shotgun was in my car so I could pheasant hunt after football practice.
Okay, so that was one of the ones that
that's like I think he misspoke, but to say that I'm friends with school shooters, like we hang out on the weekends. I tell them not
friends with a
school shooter.
So that was one of the moments.
3. We were getting dangerously close to people justifying authoritarian actions. I think we need to push back against this. Tim Walz on the campaign trail was literally saying free speech doesn't cover hate speech and misinformation. There's no guarantee for free speech when it comes to misinformation or hate speech, especially concerning our democracy. Hey man, everything we labeled misinformation just a few years ago is now front-page news in the New York Times showing we were lied to. Senator, thank you. Governor, you previously opposed an assault weapons ban, but later in your political career you changed your stance. But yeah, I sat in that office with those Sandy Hook parents. I've become friends with school shooters. I've seen it. Look, I was a NRA guy for a long time. They used to teach gun safety. I'm old enough that my shotgun was in my car so I could go pheasant hunting after football practice. So, that was one of those moments. I don't think he meant it literally when he said he's friends with school shooters like they hang out on weekends. I told him, friends with a shooter, so that was one of those moments.
If you can play this, the audience is deeply concerned about your question. Go ahead, Rob.
What is a woman? What is a woman is the question.
I'm not sure I understand the question here.
Well, that.
So what do you want me to say? This is
I want you to say that a woman like me is an adult human female, that men can't become women. You guys are the party of violence, and you're the party erasing women. You don't respect us. You're a bigot. You're a misogynist. You're a sexist. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
According to Rogan, Walz managed COVID-19 restrictions like someone blindly guessing their way through an escape room while flipping through outdated science magazines. There was no consistency, no real science, and definitely no logic, just a constant flow of nonsense disguised as caution.
And he was 100% right with Tim Walz.
I know I'm doing something right when the Fox News crowd is all bitching at me like crazy. Like, I'm loving it.
That guy was almost the vice president of the United States.
Elon Musk was crying last week. Tim is being mean to me, basically. You know, like, yeah.
I'm sure you've seen that thing where it shows Obama saying, I need a vice president that's dumber than me.
He may or may not have cognitive decline problems at his age, but at her age, she's just dumb.
Rogan mocked the double standards. Big chain stores stayed open, while mom-and-pop shops got buried under red tape. Rogan said it felt like Walz was running an experiment to see how quickly he could crush small business morale while protecting places that sell inflatable pools and cheap socks. The man had all the decisiveness of a magic 8-ball, but with even less charm. And when asked for answers, he'd give a monologue so dry it could crack mirrors. His wife, soon-to-be, was trying to make sense of his argument. Are you buying her reasoning? Go ahead, You know, if kids are hungry at school, think about what that does to their brain and learning. You're not going to learn to read. So, if we're talking about learning to read and closing gaps, then you better remove the obstacles for that. If that means tampons, then that means tampons. Play that one more time. Yeah, it's starting to sink in.